Welcome to Mindfully Integrative Podcast with your host, Dr. Damaris G. Mindfully Integrative is a podcast discussing ways toward mindfully incorporating integrative health into our lives. This podcast will have informative resources, fun topics, interviews, and discussions relatable for today with a true mindful perspective in a mind-body, holistic life approach.
So the tips for achieving your weight loss, we've talked already, mostly in depth, tracking your progress, physical activity, healthy foods, and practicing portion control, which, we've kind of reiterated: smaller plates, smaller bowls, smaller dishes, portion size, helping you practice mindful eating, kind of like a summary of what we were discussing, pre-portioned snacks, maybe finding balanced plates for yourself, have half the plate in like vegetables, a quarter protein, and 1/4 of maybe grains, more nutrient dense foods, a palm size of protein or fish or plant-based, if that is, cup hand of a little bit of carbs, a thumb size of maybe oils or nuts. Avoid eating in front of the TV, computer, distractions, the phone. Pay attention when you're eating. Listen to your body. See how you feel when you're full. Listen to when your hunger, your fullness cues. Plan and prepare as much as possible. Plan your meals, snacks in advance. Portion out healthy options so that they're easily accessible and you're not going to reach for fast food or fast, quick, high-calorie options. Beware of liquid beverages. There's so many caloric, sugary drinks and alcohol that have significant amount of calories, which also can bloat and have issues with your liver. Be mindful of those choices too. Maybe if you need measuring tools or a scale, that's also an option for some individuals. Not always guarantee, but the real important thing is being consistent. Consider this is a practice and this is managing, and you're going to take control of your health every single day. And it's, something that you have to work on all the time. So that know that obesity and weight management is a process, and it's not something that is fixed overnight, but it is something that you can work on daily. And it will be something that is part of, your solutions, and, really try to minimize those extra sweets, those junk food, cakes, cookies, candies, pies, and see if they're, avoid those ultra processed meats and such excess foods like hot dogs and, the sausages and the cold cuts. Encourage a lot of minimal, more of that whole foods, and avoid those monosaturated, polysaturated, want more of the quality saturated fats instead of the trans fats. Preferably things with omega-3, like things of nuts, avocados, and salmon. Really consider more of the vegetables, the rainbow and phytonutrients. And so that you can have more of the complex carbs instead of the simple sugars, so that it works on, lowering your sugar index and doesn't have such high sugar glycemic index. Limit your food's cholesterol so that it can help with your overall cardiovascular and metabolic health, and will help in turn with your obesity and weight management. Encourage individuals and yourself to have more high fiber foods over low, unless you have a health issue that deters you from having that. Limit alcohol and high caloric alcohol drinks, sugar and drinks, and more nutrient dense foods. That is obviously, personalized for you, but you can navigate these things little by little. And, there's no specific diet or fad that's going to work for you or for someone else. Everybody is different. There's paleo, there's vegan, there's keto, there's Mediterranean and such. There's not one that has to be the right thing. The ones that are pretty big that, people you hear about is maybe keto, but that is not for everyone. And that's really more for, reducing the hunger in foods, but it has more protein and high fat. And that is actually not beneficial for some individuals. It's actually been used more for neurological disorders and seizure patients. So we don't necessarily say that keto is correct, because it should be like more on the keto friendly. And individuals for a Mediterranean diet, that is beneficial sometimes for some individuals, because that is encouraged with olive oil, nuts, seeds, seafood, fermented dairy food, poultry, eggs, and minimal alcohol. And it really does benefit more less processed food. There's another big diet thing that was used more for high blood pressure, and that's the DASH diet. And that's considered vegetables, fruits, whole grains, fatty foods, low fat dairy, fish, and poultry. Now, like I said, not one of these things is right or wrong. It's going to be very different for each individual, and it's going to have to be modified to some individuals' culture, their needs, their body compass, and what they need for themselves. So that is super important. And if anyone ever tells you to go into too much fasting and intermittent fasting, those are beneficial for some, but not for all. So that has to be modified and at individuals' times. So really make sure that you try to stay focused, maybe use an app, stay connected, get yourself collaborated with individuals, stay motivated, because you've got this. Your journey for your balanced weight goals is different from somebody else, and your health issues underlying may be very different from somebody else's. So know that obesity medicine and weight management is to each person, and that really follow with a healthcare professional, and also be guided with your family or friends to help get you positive and into the right mindset. So the most thing is, to love yourself where you are now, where you're going to be, and where you'll be, as you grow old. So I hope you like this lecture. If you have any questions, reach out to the team and we'll be glad to reach out to you. And all the references are at the end of the slide, and additional ones can be sent to you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the Mindfully Integrative Show with Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, family nurse practitioner. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnose, or treat. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your healthcare routine. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please support us by leaving a mindful review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite streaming platform. Interested in being a guest or more information? Email us at info@mindfullyintegrative.com. For resources mentioned in the show, visit our website at www.mindfullyintegrative.com. You can also connect mindfully with Dr. Damaris on her social media links found on the site. May your strength and peace guide you to find a mindful way every day. Namaste.